You see what the books look like. At the moment there are 3, 4, 5, and a couple of more coming. Again, we're an open access press and have the same model as my other speakers. We believe in the printed book, or we believe that the printed book is a big part, but I'll introduce more of that in a little bit. It was very interesting hearing Gary talk in the beginning about how neoliberalism embraces open access, because I can definitely say that Meson Press is sort of a child of a neoliberalist framework. It comes from an EU fund that was given to a university with a focus on that this research fund should create businesses. And we said, well, why not an open access press, even though we all know what the hell is the business model of an open access press. We don't know, we don't care. There's the opportunity to publish, and you can start doing that. So my background is a little bit in publishing. I founded a music magazine, a German one, on electronic music when I was in the late 90s. One of my friends has another German publishing small press, which is not open access. And the third, Marcus, was also part of the hybrid publishing lab. He's very good with computers. So one thing that's very good is if you start a press, see that you all have different skills and bring them all together. I think that's one of the most important part. The hybrid publishing lab could profit from very good people. And the Meson Press, therefore, starting up a press too. Gary Hall has been with us and has been an advisor. Armin and Mayfly Books have been really important and helped us setting up Lightning Source on-demand press. But also Open Humanities Press, with whom together we are launching the translation of an Isabel Stengers book pretty soon in Catastrophic Times. And Mattering Press, as well as Sarah's Goldsmith Press, we've sort of built a sort of not official network. So whenever a question comes up, how to deal with contracts, what's the question here, is it better to do it this way or that way, it's very important that you just have somebody you can ask. So feel free to email us and ask. I think that's one really important thing. With the open and open access also comes the idea that we're not competitors, but that we work together. And I think that's very important. Our attitude towards radical open access is very much, comes very much from the technology. We believe that open access is simply a factor of digital media, and we really shouldn't have to work with it. So one question to you, if you write a text or if you do your own research, how many of you rather use when you write, not when you read, when you write a PDF to work with and not a printed book? Anybody working with a PDF at all, apart from 2, 3, 4, a couple? So I've seen a tendency. Is that a yes? No, just scratching your head. I've seen a tendency that people are working with PDF, and we know that there are illegal libraries up where we love to download books. ARC recently had been down shortly. I got a bit of a crisis personally, but lucky us, it came up again a few days later. The URL was taken, and this also shows you how fragile these sort of new modes of distributing literature are, if you think of a radical left approach of publishing. We've seen the same with, I don't know how many of you ever saw a pirated series or movie. I think nearly none, and I'm not going to ask you if you did or not. But recently there was another URL taken from a very known website called EZTV. And that was completely shut down and taken over. So we see that those constructs are fragile, and they are not really, on the long term, ways around. I mean, you have to set up a new URL. It's always a cat and mice game if you go down that route. And it's also legally and financially, therefore, quite dangerous. So open access press is a sort of legal, radical alternative to the illegal one. And what does the effect that we have digital media mean for books, and what does this mean for publishing? These were two questions that were in our minds when we were starting researching with the hybrid publishing lab you see online here. As you can see from our books that we publish, this is our website. So we're focused on a specific topic. We publish a lot of network media, digital culture stuff, because we all, our background is media studies or media. And you can see Cyborg is a translation of Antonio Caronia, who's an Italian writer from the 60s. Then there's one book which obviously is there in English and in German, Micro-Decisions, Politics of Micro-Decisions, Modi der Existenz et Soriot, which has been translated from English, from French to German. And this is a Kostas Axelos, which will be soon out, Future Thought on Marx and Heidegger. 30 years, Les Immatériaux, that's an essay collection, because Les Immatériaux, the exhibition that Jean-François Lyotard was just, was curating, is now 30 years old, and we published an old text of him and new essays. So you see, it's quite a variety of countries, and I had to smile a little bit when we were walking down here. I heard somebody asking, so where's your press located? And Joe, I think Joe had the question, and we both were like, what do you mean, where are we located? So it is not important anymore where you are located. Open Humanities Press, it's the same. So these are academics that have the same idea, but they're located all over different countries, really. My friends are, one of them is located in Germany. I'm working at the University of Westminster in London. So it's actually more and more international projects. And we see ourselves a little bit as a European project, which also comes with difficulties because we actually live and work and write in research bubbles and in regional bubbles. So we look at certain authors, we quote certain authors and not others, and we have very different regulations around publishing research. That starts with peer review, but ends with a ref. Germany, for example, doesn't have a ref. So there are all these different cultures that come together, but that they are there all of a sudden. So it's also good. It's a challenge, but you can also pick what is good for you. So let me have a look. I think for us, as you can see, it has been very important that we could finance a proper book designer. We picked one which we found from the internet, Thorsten Köchlin, who had won a book prize on designing printed books. He wasn't digital before, and what he and Silke Krieg, the web designer, what they did then was starting to research how books look like, because one thing that we believe is that if you buy a book, it should, the value of the research, I mean, the idea that Joe expresses with a care is something that we also think you should take care of the book, you should do copy editing, and you should also try to look good so that people buy you and love to buy the printed book. So one of our ideas is that we produce a very clean and very good PDF, that we also produce a very good and very clean print that looks very good. And we have this concept, as you can see, and sometimes I mix up the titles, especially when I'm under pressure and stand in front of you. So there are keywords on the cover, which is the idea of our book designer, actually, because he said in a digital world, you have the title next to the book everywhere. What is important is that people can recognize the thumbnail of a book and not the cover. So because most of these books nowadays are not bought in shops, but bought online, wherever if you go to Amazon or if you go to a library, the title is next to the cover. So the concept, which does not go down well with all the writers or authors, is that only the keyword is on the cover, and that this is actually what a book is when it becomes digital. It should sort of relate to the digital environment, and even if it is printed, it sort of has this relation and speaks of this relation to the digital. So that was one aspect we were looking into, and we're thinking a lot about what does digitalization mean for books, actually. There is fun. I think it is very easy to start a press, but then to finish it, so to say, or to continue and really set it up is not so easy. It is a lot of work, especially in the beginning. It starts with setting up contracts, finding all the work hours that you need to have, deciding on a design, what are you know, how do you do the peer review and everything. So being a left press, this is not the idea of a business, and it is also not the idea of no business. So I would say Meson Press tries to open up a space in between both models. The business model of this is a cooperative, which means like we three have founded it, but everyone who wants to, we have to vote on that, but we hope that over long term a lot of people start buying parts of this and come and become part of our press. It's a model that's very known in Germany. There's a newspaper called Taz, a left newspaper, like Libération in France. And this is based on the model of a cooperative, and these models work very, very well in the digital environment. I think, Joe, in the past, on your website, there's also you can donate money button, and that's the same idea a little bit, only that you become part of the press with a cooperative. It is also that so far, most of the time, we have the money for paying a copy editor properly, and this is really what is the biggest problem. So we had the time to produce a little bit of software that helps us. We have a template. We produced a template in Word, which we send out to the author. The template then has a little software now that translates it back to InDesign, which helps enormously because, you know, nowadays with all those formats, you have to set a text in all the formats. So ebooks, HTML, all of that is a problem. So you need to produce a little bit digital technology to help yourself there. But the thing is, if you really want to start a press and you don't have the money to pay someone, you really need to take on books that you like yourself. Now imagine most of you work at the university, and a lot of you, I guess, have to mark a lot or look after essays of students a lot or do that sort of work that comes with teaching. And what you really can't do is you can't come home and then edit another 10,000 word text. It's just, you know, if you don't really like the text and then have the enthusiasm to turn to this text on the weekend, you shouldn't take on the book project, at least if you're not fully paid for that. So there comes a little bit of a pragmatic problem there that where I think an open access press can decide to operate a bit differently. Sarah was speaking about the problem of peer review. You all know that the university has an hour system now, or I know Westminster is just at the moment changing to one, and all your time is calculated in hours so that they make sure that really there's no hour left for you to, you know, do, for example, press work. So if that is the case, you really have to think on what projects you are taking on and how. One thing that I find is that, funnily enough, with the digital, while it's easier to send text back and forth, the production mode should change, and I did the mistake with my first book that I looked after by Matteo Pasquinelli. Sit down and do the peer review or do the editorial review as a group at some point. I mean, the thing that is most frustrating if you do editorial work is you sit there with a text and you comment, and it really feels like, you know, you do the work for your student. And that's where peer review gets quite frustrating. It's much better if you read the text and then you meet with other people like-minded, and then you start discuss what's going on. So you change the whole press situation, not in something where you product streamline, but get something out for yourself. You know, try to establish a conversation around a book and yeah, I think that's something that I learned is really, really important and changes a lot of things, and also changes the writing. And a lot of authors are very interested in getting feedback because we all know there are more and more texts out there, and they are not being read a lot. So I think that's something where digital production actually can enforce more real, like meeting in real life, and that gets more important. Yeah, finally, where does radical open access goes from here, and what is the role of the academic? I think what we discussed here a lot is the breaking up of the academic. That is always, there are two ways of publishing. You're publishing for your career, but now you also publish for a new audience, and I think all of those presses, and I hope Meson Press is part of this, is a part of opening those new audiences. So you can decide for yourself, or you should discuss for yourself, do you think of publishing that your voice and your career is one, or do we have to start to think that theory is partly what makes my career and what do I get paid for, but it is also another sort of conversation, and I want this conversation to happen. Now, if you want that, it means work, but I can assure you it's worth it. Thank you.